Welcome to Non-Technical Tech Support Interview Questions. In this video, I will talk about questions that are specific to tech support and not necessarily apply to other common interview questions. I have an article and video about top 10 most common interview questions and link above if you're interested in that. All of the stuff I will talk about here is based off personal experience, and I would like to hear yours as well. If you have any idea for an interview question and answer that is related to non-technical aspects of tech support, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you got a second, please select the like button. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So here we go. Question number one, can you tell me about yourself? We have heard this question so many times, regardless of what kind of job you're applying for, that the reason for this being a non-technical tech support interview question is because it will be asked during an interview. This is what interviewers do as one of those first things to figure out whether they're going to hire you or not. So what you want to talk about is experience. Of course, you want to talk about all of your experience that is related directly to this job. And when you're applying for this specific job, make sure you keep in mind to talk about things that are directly related to this exact position. So regardless to whether you have experience doing some other stuff, you might want to mention stuff that's directly related to this job first, and then you can mention your other experience. If you have no experience whatsoever, this is where you can talk about your hobby or your education, because that would be your selling point because you have no choice. Normally you don't want to talk about your hobbies that are not related, obviously, but you might want to mention hobbies. For example, I know how to build computers. I fix computers for my family. Mention anything that could be related to this job. And of course, you might want to mention your education. I have a degree in this. I have a certificate in that. All those things that will help them make this decision in hiring you. And this is literally one of those first questions where in first questions where they can literally decide whether they're going to hire you or not. So be very careful with this and make sure you research the position ahead of time so that way you can specifically tell them, hey, look, me telling you about myself, these are the reasons why you should hire me because of this experience and these specifications that I have as someone who could do a good job. All right, moving on. So here's a situational question that they may ask you, and the question is, if you come across a situation which you can't resolve, what would you do? This is a crucial question because there will be a time where you can't resolve something. So let's say you come across a computer that you can't fix, or you come across a situation where you can't resolve an issue with a server, or an issue where you can't resolve an issue with a switch, or a domain controller, or Active Directory, or anything else that might be technical. What they want to know is, if you can't fix it, well, what do you do? Like, you can't just give up. So what they want you to say is, if I can't fix it, then I would ask either coworkers or a manager or somebody else who can help resolve that issue as quickly as possible. Because keep in mind, they want to know if you can resolve the issue, period. Whether you have to get somebody else to do it just to fix it at that time, they are completely fine with that because they know there will be a time where you can't resolve something. Of course, they want you to be able to resolve most things by yourself, but yes, there will be a situation where you literally can't fix it yourself, especially if you are not, for example, administrator for a certain server, or you don't have access to this or that. All these things that would prevent you from resolving an issue, they want to know, what would you do? So the first thing you want to say is that you would basically get a coworker or somebody else who can resolve the issue or help you resolve the issue and resolve it in expedited manner, I should say, and that should be a satisfactory answer. All right, let's move on to another one. Here is another situational question, and I'm sure you guys already see the pattern here because they're non-technical tech support interview questions. And another situational one is, let's say you're working on an issue for a user. However, someone else reaches out to you for immediate assistance who is in managerial position. What do you do? So key here, or the key word here, is managerial position. So what they want to know is, who are you going to prioritize? One user, a regular user, or a manager that needs immediate assistance? And the answer here is to stop doing everything and help the manager. And I know this sounds kind of messed up, but this is just a fact of a business environment. User is not as important in this business as a manager is. And not to say that user is not as important as a person, in general life, but in this business, in this specific business, keep in mind they're running a business, and they want you to know that a manager is more important than a single user, and that's the truth about it. So you would basically stop, you would help the manager, and but of course you have to mention that you would tell the user that you would help them regardless. It's just that you have to do something else before you help them. You don't want to necessarily say, hey, I got this manager, I gotta help him, I gotta stop now. So no, you don't want to tell them that. You might want to tell them, hey, something came up, I gotta handle this real quick, but I'll get back to you. And then you help the manager, and then once you help the manager, you help the user. All right. All right, moving on. Here's another situational question, and that's the theme so far. And the question is, let's say you have 10 trouble tickets to work, and it just so happened that at the same time a major system goes down. What would you do in that situation? So again, they're trying to see if you can prioritize things in a business environment, and what they're asking is, do you think 10 trouble tickets from 10 different users is more important is more important than a major system going down? So what that means, what they're asking is, well, do you know, uh, do you have the comprehension basically that a major system will affect more than 10 users? So the obvious answer, of course, would be here that you would stop doing the trouble tickets for now, and that you would resolve an issue with major system outage, because major system outage will potentially affect more than 10 people. That, especially if there are 10 trouble tickets, there might be some minor issues in there here, typically, and usually is the case with trouble tickets. Whenever somebody requests assistance with something, they would fill out the trouble ticket, they would go to the help desk, and help desk would route it certain ways. But if a major system goes down, you stop doing everything and you deal with that. They simply want you to understand that. And I don't want to sound kind of mean or anything like that when I talk about these things, but this is just how it is in a business environment. So the way you would answer is, well, I would pause the working on the tickets, and then I would concentrate on resolving this issue with a major system outage, because that would affect more than 10 people potentially. And once I've resolved that, I would go back to working the tickets. All right, moving on. Here's another question. Have you ever had a conflict at work? And, this is a really open-ended question. Think about it. It says, have you ever had a conflict at work? It doesn't specify whether it's with a user or coworker, and you should be very, very careful answering this question. So, a lot of times, you can say, if you really just want to kind of ignore the question, which I don't necessarily advise, but it's not necessarily wrong either, you can just say, I've never had a conflict with anybody. Never, never, never. And they'll say, "Oh, you never had a conflict with anybody," and they would like write it down. They would look like they're writing it down. This is what they do typically in interviews. But you know, if you choose to provide an answer of conflict, make sure that what you tell them has led to a resolution of this conflict in a professional, IT professional manner. So let's say somebody was angry with you, and you can say that you remained calm and resolved the issue in a civil manner in which both parties were very happy with the result. So what's some example of that? Let's say you're talking to the user, and a lot of times, if you do have a conflict, which is pretty rare, but it does happen because people misunderstand things. Let's say you're talking to them over, I don't know, some kind of instant messenger or email, for some reason, and you're talking to them and they misunderstand what you're saying and may think that you're actually not going to help them with their issue. They may take that personally. So you can possibly bring this up. Oh, and then you can say, well, this was just a misunderstanding with the user. And once I explained to the user that this is what I meant, and then I'm actually helping them, or will resolve their issue as soon as you can, then and that you did resolve the issue, then that might be a good example of a conflict that you have resolved. So of course, you can kind of compare that with a coworker, or let's say you and your coworker, I don't know, worked on a project, or let's say you asked a coworker to help you with something. Remember how I talked about, asking somebody else for assistance? Maybe you went to a coworker and you said, "Hey, I need help with this," but you were in a hurry. For example, let's say you were in a hurry, and you were like, "Hey, I need your help." And the guy's like, I'm in the middle of something. And you're like, what? You're thinking to yourself, because you might be panicking or something. I don't know, in that situation. But we're human. So sometimes we assume that somebody doesn't want to help us and may, lead to misunderstanding of sort. But if you approach it in a different way, you can realize that it's just a misunderstanding. And that way, you can say that the issue was resolved once you explained that what you were working on is actually of importance, and that you didn't mean, for example, to be angry or loud about it. You were just slightly panicking, maybe, or something like that. But although that may not be the best example for the coworker situation, but either way, come up with something that had a minor conflict, very minor conflict, and that you resolved it in a professional and timely manner. That's what they want to hear. So you can have any example that you want. All right. So this next question is related to how the business decides to run things when it comes to tech support. So here's the question. The rules in the company are that everyone has to submit a trouble ticket. However, users keep contacting you directly without a ticket. How would you deal with this situation? So this typically happens when you help somebody. The trouble ticket comes through, you pick it up, you work it, and user is very happy with the way you help them, the way you quickly resolve their issue. So instead of following the company's rules of submitting trouble tickets, because you got to have a way to keep track of things that break, they decide to contact you directly without having to submit a trouble ticket. So the way you would deal with this is by basically saying that you would tell the user, all right, no problem, I'll help you as soon as I can. However, in the meantime, can you please submit a trouble ticket so that way we can keep track of issues that happen with the computers or with the systems? So this is definitely one of those easy questions to answer, but these situation does happen a lot. Once, especially if you're doing help desk or any type of tech support that deals with trouble tickets, users tend to contact you directly without submitting tickets. And this is a good sign actually for you. That means you're doing an amazing job. And if you do put yourself in this situation and your company does require trouble tickets, just kind of keep that in mind that you want to tell them, sure, no problem, I'll help you as soon as I can. And you might want to mention specifically as soon as you can, because other people that did submit trouble tickets, you don't want to necessarily uh, allow this other person to jump the line, because that's not cool. Nobody likes people that jump the line. But you just want to kind of let them down easy, saying, hey, I'll help you, but can you go ahead and submit a trouble ticket, and we'll help you as soon as we can. You, or if you're working in a group, then somebody will definitely handle it for them. All right. So here's another kind of a, I don't want to say kind of a controversial question, and that is, have you ever taken a pencil from work? And this is something people would ask because they, of course, they want to see whether you are someone who would steal from work. And as simple as that. They really want to know if you would steal something from work. And of course, they would ask this if you're working with a lot of computers, if you're doing a lot of PC reimaging, PC upgrades, PC, installing new monitors, new equipment comes in and out. If it's a large company, it's really hard to keep track of that. So they want to know whether you have taken a pencil from work, because that means you stole from work, right? So of course you want you want to say no, never, 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 ever. Even if you by accident taken a pencil, and we know that this happens. Let's be honest, this happens. People have taken pencils or something tiny from work on accident, something that they work with all the time. A pencil is a really good example, and this is why this question can be tricky, because they say, have you ever taken a pencil from work? And if company provides you pencils to write with, how many times have you taken a pencil from anywhere? I mean, this happens. But regardless to that, say no, never, 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 ever. Because you don't want to tell them that you accidentally stole a pencil. So this is a very important question, but also kind of funny when you think about it. And the last one I want to talk about, and just because I don't want to stretch this out even further, and that is a typical question they would ask you in an interview, and that is, why should we hire you? At the end, this is what they would usually do. Why should we hire you? Of course, it's very similar to the first question. You want to tell them that you have the specific experience. This is what I always say. I have specific experience related to this job that would make me the best option for you to hire. Or you can word it any way you like, but you can say that this is what I say. I have a specific experience to this job. This is why it makes me the best candidate. And if they want you to elaborate, you can certainly go back and mention all the qualifications you have, education, this and that. And it can be a tricky question. Don't just make sure you're not nervous about it. And it's hard to say, hey, to somebody, don't be nervous about an interview. But trust me, you're talking to people. You're not talking to gods. You know what I mean? I hate to say kind of unprofessional and say it like that, but you're not talking to gods. You're talking to just regular people. And you know how many times I've dealt with people of higher level of management, directors, I don't know, vice presidents, presidents of a company, this and that. I've talked to them many, many times, and they're just people. Just be yourself. Just see if you can relax as much as possible. Watch more of my videos that are specific to the job that you're applying for. So if you're doing desktop support, I have many videos on that have interview questions and answers of technical nature. I have network administration, system administration. I even have some programming. I have as far as registered nurse type of stuff. But of course, it's not related to tech support. But I have so much stuff that you can just go over and set your mind at ease, because interviews, nobody wants to do interviews, but It's good to be ready, and it's good to know that it's no big deal to talk to people. It is definitely a big deal to get a job, but it's no big deal to talk to people. So once you go in a mental state of, once you go into the interview with a mental state of someone who's, you're just going to talk to somebody who's human, and then if you see that human as kind of like your buddy, then you'll have an easier time talking to them. It's just whatever. Let's just hang out, but stay professional. And that's the best advice when it comes to somebody who's being nervous and this and that. All right, guys. I know this is not technical in any way, and which is unusual for me to make. But if you appreciate this type of content, I would appreciate you clicking the like button, leaving a comment or sharing this video with your friends. Thank you guys so much. I wish you best of luck and just relax. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.